So the second of Layer's law is that your headline should be a spoiler. And by this, I mean it should provide an overview of everything that is going to come in your paper or in a particular section of it, which is another way of saying it should be an outline of the main actors involved in the section or paragraph, how they are related, and what their significance or consequence is. And if you want to put it, another way to put it is that your headline should offer a roadmap of what your paper is about, where it's going, and who is going to be part of this journey. You should basically, as part of your headline, and your headline may be one sentence, it could be two sentences, maybe three or four, just depending on how much territory you're covering. Your headline should basically outline everything that the reader is going to see, or at least give a statement about everything that the reader is going to see. So when they're going along, there are no surprises. Like if they get to page 10, there all of a sudden should be this new topic that hasn't been introduced somewhere else before. And the reason why it's important to emphasize this is that students, and again, I fall under this as well, is that people tend to write detective stories. And what these are things you have to read to the very end in order to make sense of what is being said, or related to what we talked about with Layer's Law number 1. They kind of put the headline at the end of a section. And the example I put down here is Rosebud. And you may know that Rosebud is a very famous phrase from the movie Citizen Kane. And Citizen Kane, people say, some people argue, is the greatest movie ever made. But Citizen Kane starts with an old man on his deathbed who keeps saying the phrase Rosebud. And then the rest of the movie, you're trying, as the viewer, you're trying to figure out what Rosebud is and what it means. And it's not until the very end, the ending scene, that you see what Rosebud is, and then you appreciate what happened in the very beginning of the movie. This is a classic detective story because, again, you can't figure out what you're seeing until the very end of the movie. Another way to put this is that you don't know who done it, right, until the movie or story concludes. And similar to what happened with Layer's Law number 1, if you write a detective story, your readers will not be able to fully appreciate what you're saying and its significance until they've reached the end. But having readers do that and is making them do a lot of work, which, as we talked about before, we don't want to do. And also, we're assuming that the reader might make it all the way to the end. And then at that point, he or she will appreciate what you've been saying before. But they may not. FYI, for this class, don't worry, I'll read to the very end. But outside of this class, that's not a guarantee. So if the reader can't make sense of what you're saying until the very end of the paper, that's risky because the reader may not get there, especially if they're having to do a whole bunch of work and have to kind of like slog through a lot of material without actually understanding what it is you're talking about or why they should care. So to give an illustration of how this kind of looks in practice, a bad or detective structure looks like this. There's a concept, there's evidence or facts, and then there's a conclusion where the author finally explains or shows how concept X explains evidence and the facts A, B, and C. So the conclusion of this part of the paper or the paper itself is actually either the section or the paper's thesis. All right. But if I'm the reader, I start here, I'm learning about a concept. I don't know why I'm learning about this concept, but I am. Then all these facts are thrown at me, and I don't know why I should care about them. And then it's the very end. It's like, oh, okay, now I understand X is related to A, B, and C because it explains them. Again, that's a lot of work on the part of the reader. They're probably gonna be frustrated because they don't know why you're talking about these things. And then they're going to get on here, and now they have the basis for understanding, but now they have to go back and think about, what did I read on page 1? Now I'm on page 30. And then what did I read on page 15, 16, and 17 where these things are talked about? Again, it's very taxing for a reader. The good way to do it is your headline should be a spoiler and should be a roadmap. So you start off with your thesis where you say, Concept X explains evidence and facts A, B, and C. So your thesis comes at the start. Your thesis is your spoiler. It's your roadmap. The reader knows I'm going to learn about concept X, and I'm going to learn about facts and evidence A, B, and C. And also I'm going to learn the relationship that exists between these different things. So the author here says what the paper is about, provides the roadmap. Then in the middle part, the author walks the reader through showing how and why concept X explains evidence and facts A, B, and C. So you actually go on your journey, if we're using the map metaphor. And then you get to the end, and here you're just going to restate your thesis. And you can say something like, we have seen how evidence and facts A, B, and C are explained by concept X. So the good structure is, this is what I'm going to show you. Again, there are no surprises. Here, I'm showing you what I said I was going to. And then here, I'm going to tell you what you've just seen. So here I'm forecasting what we're going to see. Here I'm showing it to you. And then here I'm saying retrospectively, this is what we've done. If you do this and structure your paper this way, the reader's going to understand and appreciate everything you're saying, and they're going to have a sense of what's coming and when, and why they should care about it. And the likelihood that your reader is going to stray off and start understanding things in different ways is greatly limited if you structure your paper like this. And also, it's not very taxing for the reader. You're saying, I'm going to show you. Now I'm showing you. This is what I've shown you. It's simple conceptually. It can take a while to figure out how to do it in practice, but it's extremely, extremely effective for your readers, which is why we want to work on structuring our arguments in this way. All right. Your spoiler should also not just simply state the topic of your paper or the section of the paper you're talking about, but it should outline, again, the main actors, how they're related, and the significance of what you're talking about. Why should the reader care to read about the things that your paper is covering and addressing? And I want to emphasize this because lots of people, when they try to come up with their headline that's a spoiler, often it's very general and non-specific, and it's basically just the introduction of the topic that your paper is addressing, more so than introducing the argument that your paper is addressing. So for example, a bad spoiler would be, in this paper I'm going to talk about Marx's ideas of exploitation in the context of a capitalist economy. Yes, you're introducing the topic of your paper, but there's a lot of missing elements here, a lot of things that you are going to need to cover that you're not letting the reader know about. So this introduces a topic, which is better than nothing, but to really have an effective headline that acts as a spoiler, you need to go further than this. So a good spoiler would be, in this paper, I'm going to talk about Marx's idea of exploitation in the context of a capitalist economy. So introducing the topic, like I did above, but I'm going beyond. And show how and why he thinks capitalism is an inherently exploitative economic system. As will be seen, Marx thinks capitalists can only earn a profit if they exploit their workers by making them work for free. This spoiler introduces the main players: Marx, capitalism, exploitation, profit, and it also outlines how they are related. Workers have to work, but capitalists can only earn a profit from their workers if they make them work for free, thereby exploiting them. This provides a much clearer picture of what the reader is going to find below than just a topic. So again, our temptation will just be write topics, but we need to go beyond that and really explain the argument, the overall argument that your paper is addressing, or that you're trying to make in a particular section. All right, so that is it for Lair's Law number 2. We will now turn our attention to Lair's Law number 3, which deals with hugging our quotations.